speaking of obnoxious, how about the Commanders? This was one of your best calls. I'm surprised you're not doing a victory lap here. In the offseason, you were higher on them than everyone. They snapped a 3-game skid on Sunday with a big win over the Titans. Jayden Daniels was on fire early. Washington scored TDs on their first 4 possessions. Daniels accounted for 4 of the scores, throwing for 3, adding 1 on the ground. They outgained Tennessee by over 200 yards, and they're back in the mix for, locking up a playoff spot. Jayden Daniels, by the way, improving his offensive rookie of the year odds. He's now minus 220. Bo Nix second. Brock Bowers has overtaken Caleb Williams for 4th. Any thoughts on the Commanders' rousing victory?
I think they have a bye week, then they go to New Orleans. I think they're going to win that game, and they're going to be home free. The weird one is the NFC South, where it's like, I picked Atlanta to win, Kirk Cousins off the rails, and, Baker can deliver. When Baker's backed into a corner, and I like Tampa's roster, so if I had to bet today, I'd probably take Tampa over Atlanta, but Atlanta beat them twice already.
Yeah.
So head-to-head, if it's tied, that goes to the Falcons.
That Seattle-Arizona matchup this weekend
that's
in the desert is huge.
Is that one on Fox? That's a good matchup. By the way, what's the line on that? I like Arizona.
Who do you think's favored?
Arizona's
They're
favored.
favored, yeah. I don't know that I agree with that.
I would guess.
I think Seattle's the side. I like the Seahawks team, man. I know they kind of no-showed in the first quarter against the Jets, but...
Okay. That was a very in-depth, long conversation about Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. It was for all of 35 seconds, and then they just went on to start talking about the Atlanta Falcons, the Buccaneers, and the Seattle Seahawks. It is kind of crazy. I went through all the clips on Monday and thinking, get up, the herd, first things first, Jayden Daniels, big game, rookie of the year candidate. And 42-19 against the Titans, and nothing. This is the best we got. I couldn't find anything on them, and it was just like I had to do like some clip on NFL on NBC or whatever the one show is. I honestly don't even know. And it's kind of crazy because the Washington Commanders are definitely the team where you saw them talk about it when they had problems. The first things first was like, oh, what's wrong with Jayden Daniels and things of that. And I'm pretty sure, was it Mangini or Brew who picked the Commanders to be upset by the Titans or whatever? And I was like, no, come on, you guys are crazy. But this game was a great game, and it shouldn't be surprising to anyone, quite frankly. And I love this game, and I already kind of did a deeper dive on the game itself, so I don't want to rehash all those points, but I just want to say is that this game, if you're a Commanders fan, should feel so good because of what the game plan was and what they asked Jayden Daniels to do. This was the first game since he really caught fire in the beginning of the season, when people were really kind of like, oh my God, who the heck is Jayden Daniels? Where it felt like so much of the game plan really relied on Jayden Daniels being special, on Jayden Daniels really using his gifts. And this game was the first time in a while where they just allowed him to just be a quarterback, to just play within the system, to just, like I keep saying, he calls hike, drops back, gets 1, 2, throw. Hike, 1, 2, throw. And it's just like he's throwing to receivers that are genuinely open. It's not like to tight window throws. It's not these having to be just anticipation. He's not having to throw guys wide open or move defenders with his eyes. Like it's just they're just there for him. They're just there. And that feels good to be able to just get the offense going like that. And when you need Jayden Daniels to be special and you need to use a little misdirection here and there, you have the play, which was one of my favorite plays when he kind of rolled out and kind of did the fake kind of like designed run type thing. And then just like a nice little toss to McLaurin. Like I just love that because now that is using the threat and the special of Jayden Daniels, but not relying on his special. It's kind of like dangling. It's like, hey, our quarterback can do this. Never mind. He doesn't need to do it. He could if he wanted to. And if he wanted to, he could have, but he didn't need to. Right? It's like, meh. Where's the ball? I got 3 cups. Find it. You can't. That's right. And so I love that type of stuff because it's high reward, low risk, and it just keeps the defense on your toes. And quite frankly, it is one of those things where it's like an elephant on ice skates. It's like, like what do you do in this situation? It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. And so yeah, the Commanders are in a great spot here. They're 8-5. It does feel like, and I'm sure this isn't the way how it's going to unfold, but it does feel like this is where it's locked in terms of the wild card, where it's the Vikings, the Packers, and the Commanders. Although it's definitely quite possible because you're going to have the Packers, the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings playing all each other. That could kind of mix around a little bit. But the Buccaneers, the Cardinals, the Falcons, any of these 6-win teams, it's like, how are they? I just don't see it how they pass the Commanders. The Commanders are going to maybe be in a spot. I mean, they should be in a spot where they could be resting their starters in the final game of the season. Do they play the Eagles in the final game of the season? I forget. I feel like, let me check that real fast. No, so they play the Cowboys. They play the Eagles in a couple months, because I was thinking that would actually be kind of perfect for both those teams if they both are playing final week of the season. They both can just rest their starters, and it's kind of like maybe the game, maybe the Eagles already have their seating locked up or number one or whatever, and the Commanders are good. But that's going to be pretty good, because the Cowboys, you're going to play a divisional game, and the Cowboys would want to spoil something for the Commanders, and so they're going to come out probably pretty hard, and who knows. And the Commanders are in the legitimate seat where they could be, I don't know exactly how you would want to handle if like Jayden Daniels plays for the first quarter or whatever. I'm no expert in how to kind of monitor that and what the exact play here is, but like that's the situation where the Commanders are in right now. I mean, think about that. Last year, didn't they play the Cowboys and they got like roll? It was like the Commanders were decimated with injuries and they were just a bad team to begin with, and the Cowboys just feasted. And the game didn't matter, right? In fact, I don't know if the Commanders were already locked in at their draft order or whatnot, but it just it was nothing. And now you're potentially having another nothing game at the end of the season, but because you're already locked and loaded in the playoffs, that's pretty awesome. And if you do the math, that is technically how it should unfold, unless one of these teams in the hunt just goes on a tear. I mean, you would really need both teams going on a tear. You would need the Seahawks and the Cardinals going on a tear, and the Bucks and the Falcons, right? In order for them to be like kind of fighting. But it just like should be unlikely. So that, I mean, I just think that's remarkable. I mean, think about the turnaround. A nothing team to a team that could be resting their starters in the final game of the season, because you got some playoffs to get to. That's pretty exciting. That's really awesome. And again, the whiplash of this, where it was like, the Commanders, they're not that good. Daniels not that good. Then Jayden Daniels starts balling out, and everyone goes, oh my God, they're going to win the division. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. This is unbelievable. The greatest team in the history of the world. And then they lose a couple games, and it's like, I told you they were overrated. Who have they beat? They're not that good of a team. Jayden Daniels is not that good. He's a one-trick pony. And then they beat the Titans, and it's like, man, hey, they're locked in. Playoffs, wild card, let's go. And that's why you just always got to stay balanced. You always got to stay focused. You always have to try to see the reality of the situation, not the hype, not the hate, right? Not the ups, not the downs. You just got to kind of cut through it all. And it's not always easy, because sometimes the hype feels good. You get excited. And sometimes the doom and gloom is kind of like, sometimes doom and gloom always feels like it's more accurate, because you're like, no, I'm seeing things clearly. They're not actually that good. And it's like, no, that's not true either. But again, Troy Aikman said it best. And he said it in the game, before the game even started, for the Denver Broncos against the Browns. He said, listen, when you have a rookie quarterback, the mark of a successful season is the takeaway that you have a franchise quarterback. That's all you're hoping to come away with when you have a rookie quarterback. You want to end that season with the feeling of, do we have a franchise quarterback? And if you do, then the season was a smashing success. And that is what the Washington Commanders have with Jayden Daniels. So all of this is just gravy and extra, experience, which now expedites this process of even being like a more fully formed franchise quarterback, and just kind of elevating some of these other players that, are going to need this experience as well, get them hungry for next season. And I just think they're in a great spot. And honestly, like, when you look at this playoff picture, and obviously, I don't know exactly how the seeding will be and who's going to win these games, but it's like, you're looking at the Commanders versus the Falcons. I'm like, I'm going Commanders. Commanders versus Seahawks, I'm going Commanders. And then when you kind of start to get into these more interesting games, like the Commanders and the Packers and the Vikings, it's like, I mean, I'm not saying with much confidence of who's winning that game. I mean, listen, I'm going to admit, I do think that the Packers and the Vikings should be better teams. But again, I think when you look at just these 7 teams in general, honestly, I'm going to take out the Falcons right now, and I'll keep in the Seahawks for that. But when you look at the Lions, the Eagles, the Vikings, the Packers, the Commanders, and the Seahawks, especially because Geno Smith is wild card there. Like, I'm like, I don't know who's winning those games. But would it shock me if Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders stun the Vikings on the road or something, or stun the Eagles? Jayden Daniels just plays out of his mind, and he does lay it all on the line. I mean, like, those are all completely fair game scenarios. Again, I'm not saying they're likely, but they're all within the realm of the possibility. And I don't even mean realm of possibility of like, well, yeah, anything can happen. I mean, like, it can legitimately happen. Like truly. You need to get lucky with some health. You need to play very complete, perfect football. You can't be muffin punts. You got to take care of it, right? Like, you got to be smart. You got to be prepared. But it is all possible. There is absolutely a world where the Houston Texans stunned the Ravens. They almost did, but then they couldn't. Like, that game absolutely could have gone the other way in the playoffs last year. Absolutely. There was a time when you're like, oh my God, are the Ravens actually going to lose this game? But then the Ravens were able to get control of the game, a couple bounces their way, and then they rolled them. And now that game is almost that score is almost like misleading, because then they ended up winning, like, I think by like 20 plus points or whatever it was. It was a convincing win, as when the clock struck 0. But at that point, the game could have been different. Like, that is why football is always just such a wild sport. So, you never know, man. You really don't. So I'm excited to see what this team can continue to do. And hanging 42, no matter who you're playing, is not an easy thing to do, especially against the Titans, who have a legitimate defense. You do have to factor in having a bad offense when the other team's offense is so bad, and you're having lots of 3-and-outs and short drives. That is a real effect that you're going to be able to lean on. Not to mention, obviously, they're coughing up the ball and having some issues. But regardless, big win for the Commanders. Going into the bye, they absolutely should take care of business. Should take care of the teams that they have played next. There's definitely should be, I want to say, easy wins that you can already factor in. And you got to think, like, this team is at a minimum a 10-win team, which, again, is absolutely remarkable. Absolutely. Even if you just get to the playoffs and you get rolled, even if you got rolled by the Falcons, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it is an absolute grand slam dunk, whatever. Just impressive. And I just don't want Commanders fans to lose sight of that, honestly. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Washington Commanders? Them ending their awful, just terrible 3-game losing streak, and Jayden Daniels getting back on his Rookie of the Year track. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here. I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.